r/ask Reddit. Lawyers of Reddit. What is the most outrageous case someone has asked you to take? I'm not a lawyer, but as a child I was taken into foster care and then returned to my father's custody, so he had custody of me from ages 4-16. When I was 22 he tried to sue me for the costs involved in caring for me for that time, saying that he had no obligation to take custody of me and had only done so to save me from foster care. It was obviously dismissed and I don't talk to him anymore. That's seriously messed up on his part. I remember a story about parents who recorded the cost of raising their only child, food, school, toys, and when he grew up, they demanded that he pays them everything back. At that point he was old enough and had enough money to pay them back, which must have been quite a lot, since raising a child is really not cheap in the long run. He never talked to them again after that. Family law attorney here. I just had a custody case go back to court over eyeglasses. My client didn't like the glasses her ex bought the kid. So stupid. I want to go back to criminal defense. Gang homicide cases had nicer people to deal with than family law. That sounds like something my parents would have gone to court over. Divorced parents. Please remember it's the kid. S. You are really hurting. Not your ex. Please remember it's the kid. S. You are really hurting. The really bad ones know this, but they also know that the best way to hurt the ex is through the kids. A woman called saying that she had a product liability suit involving animal crackers she gave to her daughter. I was thinking it was going to be something to do with food poisoning and keep listening. She explained that when she looked at the crackers, it looked like the monkey was holding its penis. It was a banana. This woman was mortified and ashamed. She said she told all her co-workers and they were very shocked and uncomfortable. I wanted to tell her she was nuts and that they were probably freaked out because you were talking about animal cracker dongs. That's one hung monkey. http://imgur.com/ifmo8vm jpg. What are these? 1080p animal crackers? All the animal crackers I've ever eaten look like animal blobs. I worked on a custody dispute between a mother and grandmother, where both sides were absolutely outraged by the other's claims. The mother was very upset that she was alleged to have been a stripper. I was a prostitute, but I was never a stripper. The grandmother in return was furious that she was alleged to have 21 cats in her 2-bedroom apartment. We only have 17 cats. How dare she flat out lie and say that we have 21 cats. The child ended up living with the father in a different state. Kid dodged 2 bullets. Unfortunately the father was a stripper with 21 cats, who liked to impersonate both the mother and grandmother. As a public defender I defended a grown man accused of stealing magic cards from Walmart. There was an hour-long security video meticulously showing, from dozens of angles, that he was picking up sets of cards, unwrapping them and discarding the wrappers around the store. He insisted that he was innocent and we actually went to a jury trial instead of securing a plea deal. It took the jury 8 minutes to convict him and the judge laid into my client telling him that he was the worst thief he had ever seen. I forgot the best part. At one point in the trial I had to spend 45 minutes explaining to the judge what magic cards are. He couldn't understand why anyone need more than one deck. In his defense, not condoning, magic cards are ducking expensive. I do LP, and no joke, I find an average of about 1 empty package of magic cards a day. Well, more like 3 or 4 empty packages every 3 or 4 days. People steal that shit left and right. Pokemon cards too. You would be surprised how many grown-ass adults steal Pokemon cards. A year out of law school I once had a potential client who wanted me to sue Canada. Apparently he could not get into the country due to his felony record. I tried to reason with him that it was up to the sovereign nation to set its own rules regarding entry to the country, but he insisted that we could make a lot of money suing Canada. I didn't take the case, but I told him I might be able to get him a letter that said sorry from Canada edited to its. I dictated this on my phone as I was getting coffee. Thank God for the grammar people on Reddit for saving me from this catastrophic mistake in life. This reminds me of Better Call Saul when that crazy dude wanted to sue the government to make his ranch a sovereign state, or something like that. Saul wanted to take the case because of how many hours he could bill. He needed cash, but then the guy tried to pay him in his own currency he created for his new sovereign state. saying it would be worth billions once they won their case. LMAO. That scene was ducking priceless. Not a lawyer, but my uncle once had a client trying to sue Sears for distributing pornography to minors because he caught his 12-year-old son masturbating to the lingerie section. The Sears catalog, the golden years of print pornography. Kids these days are spoiled with the internet. Back in my day we had to work for the joke. I remember when I first got internet access and I could get onto Sears.com. I had a potential client come in and say that he wanted to sue his uncle for murder. Setting aside the fact that you can't sue someone for murder, I asked him who did his uncle murder. He replied me. I turned the case down. R/shit in our lap. Plot twist. Client was ghost. While working at a plaintiff's employment firm, two memorable consults came in. Guy gets fired for being late too much. Wants to sue for discrimination because he has a sugar addiction and needs to stop at 7-Eleven for a big gulp before his shift begins. As a result, he usually ends up missing the bus. A woman comes in. She was a bus driver and was terminated during her probationary period. She had 3 accidents in 6 weeks. She wants to sue for discrimination because she has anxiety and a therapy rabbit. All the while sitting at the conference room table petting the therapy bunny. Edit. Grammar typos. A woman comes in. She was a bus driver and was terminated during her probationary period. She had 3 accidents in 6 weeks. She wants to sue for discrimination because she has anxiety and a therapy rabbit. All the while sitting at the conference room table petting the therapy bunny. They're discriminating against me just because I'm clearly unfit for the job. That's racist against people who don't have skills. There's a lot of them. I've been asked to evict a ghost. I actually did that one. I regularly get phone calls promising to make me a millionaire if I'll sue the police. There's the completely guilty sex offender sitting in jail who wanted me to handle his appeal under circumstances that would have resulted in him being released, then immediately charged and convicted of a more serious crime. So many. I've been asked to evict a ghost. I actually did that one. More please. How did you do it? I have 3 things about this. First is that you apparently live in Old Noir, sipping coffee looking at snow, getting a call from 5th floor, doing detective work, calling the hospital, the probation officer, the medication, like you're a private eye. I love it. Second, swing big lawyer dong. Third, in many schools of magic religion, you performed an exorcism. The basics of getting rid of a spirit is essentially to call on a power greater than the spirit which can then have force over them. Priests call on the name of God, because God has a lot of power and even his name has strength. Other religions will call on certain natural forces, local spirits, or call out an intruding demon by name, as a way to strip their power via their name. You can even perform an exorcism just by shouting "Get the duck out of here," because now you've challenged your willpower against the ghosts. In your case, you came in with a binding document under the power of law. The written word has a lot of power, and the idea of who makes the rules is also very important. You came in with a written document with legal enforcement. As far as exorcisms go, that's not a bad weapon to throw against them. Even if not strictly enforceable, it's still a decently good place to start. The day after President Obama won the election in 2008, I had a potential client cold call for a claim of copyright infringement. He wanted to sue then President-elect Obama for having 7 US flags on the podium during his acceptance speech. I asked him for a registration number so I could verify details and he hung up on me. Edit. Second most outrageous case was a potential client wanted to protect copyright, maybe patent, a Wii sex game that used the Wii controller and Wii Fit. I wanted to take it, but was voted down by the firm. When I told the inventor this, he said, in a resigned voice, "Third time that's happened." I really felt bad for that inventor but put him on to another of my friends who was a solo IP lawyer. Edit 2. Some people are confused about the 7 flags thing, and upon review I can understand. The potential client claimed he had copyrighted the use of 7 flags on a stage for presentations. This is ridiculous and would never have been allowed a registration. But he didn't know that. Likely the potential client was high, drunk, or a scammer. My guess is he wanted to file a lawsuit, then sit down in a boardroom during pre-trial motions and try to settle for a nominal sum. He would get a few thousand, minus lawyer fees, and go away. Unfortunately, the potential client didn't understand 1. You need a copyright registration before you file a lawsuit. 2. You would never get a registration for having 7 flags in a backdrop of a stage. 3. That he was going to get nothing from then President-elect Obama because he would have had a firecracker team of lawyers at his avail. And 4. Homie, don't play that. It would have been unethical for me to file that lawsuit, as I didn't think it had a chance in hell of succeeding. In other words, I thought it was frivolous and didn't want to test local Rule 11 jurisprudence, i.e., receive sanctions, or lose my license. When I asked for his reg number, that was a clue I knew what I was doing, and he bailed. Lawyer in a small town here. I mostly do estate planning, probate, old people stuff, etc. I have a client that sued his ex-wife for not selling the house after the divorce she was supposed to. The judge held her in contempt and asked what he wanted my client to do, and he had her thrown in jail. They are both nearly 80 years old. The client also has something valuable buried on his property for his grandchildren after he dies. I have a sealed letter in my desk that he pays me a goodly sum each month to hold and give to his grandson when the old man dies. What ended up happening to the property? Is the grandson going to have to sneak in, treasure map in hand, and do some midnight digging? The property we threw the wife off of is still in the process of being sold. The man still hasn't died, so who knows what will happen then. He owns 40+ acres out in the middle of nowhere, so I imagine whatever is buried there. The person you wrote about in your story gave me a headache. You'll be hearing from my lawyer if I cannot find one. Would you be willing to represent me? And you know she's still talking about you to this day. That goddamn shit lawyer I had when I sued that contractor. He ducked up so bad that I lost everything. A prospective client once called me to ask if I did personal injury cases because she felt a fall coming on. Criminal prosecutor here. A patrol officer pulled over a driver for some traffic violation. I think failure to signal, after a heated roadside exchange where the driver initially refused to turn over her license. She ultimately relented and thrust the license with undue force into the officer's outstretched hand. The cop charged her with aggravated assault on a law enforcement officer. When asked to justify his actions, he stated that people need to learn to respect the police. We dismissed the charge, apologized to the defendant, and told the cop to never bring us something like that again. I can't recall if Internal Affairs was notified. I work with the police every day, and the majority of them are good people. This guy was a shit. Thank you for making the responsible choice. Many of the prosecutors I've worked with would have laughed and let the charges stand. A woman had cut off her husband's hand maliciously and was facing time and a divorce. She wanted me to help her sue the knife manufacturer for damages. Walking to work at the moment. I could probably let you know a few more if you are interested. Source work and law firm in Cleveland, Ohio. Cut off her husband's hands maliciously. Is there any other way? OP is a liar. All of their posting history is about being a 20-year-old alcoholic undergrad in a fraternity, not a lawyer. I work in patent law, and most of my cases are pretty mundane, small variations on items that you use every day, with enough innovation to warrant trying to profit off of it. Sometimes you get one that's actually innovative, which are the fun cases, but occasionally you get the client that's just a complete wacko. This guy, let's call him Vlad, strides into my office and lets me know he has a spectacular invention that he wants to show me, but that I must keep it secret. Vlad is a heavy-set Russian, the kind you'd expect to see in a gangster movie, with a thick accent to match. I explained that I would be happy to sign an NDA and that confidentiality will be assured. Once he was appeased that his mysterious invention wouldn't be on the front page of the Times tomorrow, he asked me to come out to his office so he could show me. Now, I was a little nervous, given his physique and the secrecy with which he was handling all of this, so I asked one of our clerks to accompany me. I drove the three of us to his office, in complete silence. Any small talk I tried to make was stonewalled. Finally we got to his office building, which thankfully looked to be a legit workspace and not a back alley warehouse as I'd originally feared. He took us to a side office once we got to his floor, and pulled me aside. "This will be my greatest achievement," he whispered, before opening the door with a flourish. In the room there was nothing but a single bright red word painted on the wall. "What is this?" I asked him. He stood over me and gazed directly into my eyes. Breathing. I call it the serious tag. OP forgot to put one. You mother ducker. Feels like I got rickrolled. https://en Wikipedia. Org weekly lawsuits against God. Ernie Chambers didn't have this case, but Ernie Chambers actually tried to bring a lawsuit against God. It was dismissed because God couldn't be notified because he did not have an address. So you can't sue a homeless person? Edit. Guys, you can stop explaining it to me now. What are you going to win? During law school, I was a member of a legal clinic. We represented low-income individuals. Under the supervision of a licensed attorney professor, we handled family law issues, but would try to point clients in the right direction if we could not personally help them. One man came in and stated that he wanted to sue Best Buy, which is not uncommon, but why he wanted to sue Best Buy was different. See, this man said he purchased a refurbished computer from Best Buy for his daughter as a Christmas present. Best Buy had neglected to remove the previous owner's password screen, and thus, this man and his daughter were unable to access the computer until they took it back to Best Buy, which was understandably closed on Christmas Day. This, he said, caused his 12-year-old daughter to begin to question the very existence of Santa Claus. He and his daughter then argued the rest of the day, until finally he admitted to her that there was, spoiler alert, no Santa Claus. His words were, "Seeing your daughter lose faith in Santa ruined all Christmases to come." He also claimed that now his daughter was a real bitch since she had stopped believing in Santa Claus. What was more interesting is the amount of damages he requested. He stated he believed that Best Buy owed him at least $25 million because Christmas was ruined. His daughter will never believe in Santa again, and now he has to deal with her being a real bitch now. I did not believe he had any type of recourse against Best Buy for inadvertently demolishing his daughter's belief in Santa. But even if I did, our clinic could not help him. I informed him that we only handled family law issues, and he should call the local bar association's lawyer referral service. He stated the bar association already told him they would not take his case. Then he proceeded to ask if I had children. I told him I did not. Then he proceeded to wish that all my future kids had their belief in Santa Claus ruined. He stated he would not help me if that happened. He then told me to duck off and left. The whole time I was wondering how this guy's daughter believed in Santa Claus till age 12. Edit. Formatting. Thanks guys gals. She's probably turning into a bitch because her dad is an a-hole. I can only imagine how he's treating her if that's how he treats strangers. When I was a trainee solicitor, my principal had a guy come in who spoke almost exclusively in quotes from US presidents. This was a specialist law firm in a very English town. And the dude was about as English as it's possible to be. Tweed suit with leather elbow patches English. He wasn't initially anything to do with me, but half an hour into the initial meeting my principal wandered into my office totally exasperated, which I'd never seen before, and she said, paraphrasing here, "Crow eggs, you're a patient man. Find out what this batchet loon actually wants. It'll be a good first case evaluation for you to handle by yourself." I spent 2 hours listening to him talk. Literally every second sentence began with "as Woodrow Wilson once said," or "as Grover Cleveland once said." He even managed to quote Taft. I mean, even the craziest of crazy doesn't quote Taft. It's Taft for Christ's sake. Anyway, after 2 hours I explained how much the meeting was costing him even though I was just a trainee. And he visibly sagged and said, all blurted out like a naughty child, "I poured bleach on the roots of my neighbor's tree and it fell into my greenhouse. Can you make him pay for the repairs?" I gently explained why that wouldn't work, and he cried. So I called the loveliest secretary in the firm who made him a cup of tea and sat with him until he went home. That's the most English thing I've read in a while. Good on you. Not lawyer but paralegal. I took a cold call one evening from a gentleman who was clearly high, probably meth, and homeless. He wanted to sue his local police dispatch, 911, paramedics and a hospital. We are a civil litigation firm, because he knocked on someone who was now, allegedly, trying to get him. It was now the police station's fault that he would have to stab the guy, and he repeatedly asked me if he should carry a knife so he could do said stabbing. He apparently had also asked the 911 dispatch this same question, and all they would tell him is that no, he should not in fact go stab someone. Also asked if he should go stab the other guy before he had a chance to get him. He then wanted to come hide at our office while keeping his knife and deciding where to go stab the other guy. Definitely most surreal phone call of my life thus far. And before it's asked, no, we didn't report the situation to anyone. We are in a large city and he said his location was up north. Did not give us his name and we don't have caller ID. Very old boss. Hates technology because he can't understand it. So we really didn't have anything to give the police as far as useful information. Fun times. Hidden in there, he actually had an interesting legal question regarding self-defense. He knows someone's going to kill him. The police aren't helping, and he wanted to know exactly what proactive steps he could take in the direction of his own self-defense before breaking laws. Too bad he couldn't communicate that question too well. It is my understanding that if you have someone attack you using deadly force, you can reciprocate. You can't stab someone for punching you. You cannot go stab someone because you think they might come for you. I mean, you can. You'll just have a murder charge. Edit: I apparently didn't phrase myself correctly this morning on my commute in. Punching you was intended to mean a singular sucker punch, not someone beating your ass. If someone is beating your ass, then yes, you may stab them with my blessing, and I'm sure that of law enforcement and the DA. If someone runs up and just punches you once, then yeah, still super don't think you can get away with stabbing them. Maybe one time, but at least where I'm from and the situations I'm familiar with, once they have been disarmed as a threat, i.e., lying on the ground covered in their own blood from getting a stab wound, you cannot then continue to stab them. The term hits the ground is used. I would also be hard pressed to believe that if someone makes a threat to you, I would assume he learned of this through a third party. Otherwise the guy would have gotten taken down then, but maybe that's just how I think. That justifies actual deadly force. From the sounds of some of your states, I'm truly terrified and don't want to travel the country. I got a call from a client I had represented in the past, wanting me to help out her son. He and his girlfriend wanted to get married, but she was under 18, so she needed permission from her parents, and they wouldn't give permission. We chatted about it for a while and then she told me it was an urgent matter, because the girl was pregnant. I said, wait, how old did you say she was? Mom said 14. I said, and how old is your son? Mom said 20. I said, you need to immediately hire a criminal defense lawyer to help you with this. And then I had to explain to her why her son had a bigger problem than not being able to get married. Edit: this was in the southern US. In this situation, there was an extremely high chance that the son could be charged with statutory rape and child molestation. I didn't look up the laws, so I don't know if her being pregnant would have allowed them to get married without consent. Open bracket. Even if they did get married, he could still be charged. They never called me back, so I don't know for sure what happened. But I knew the family and I don't think I ever saw the son's name pop up on any court dockets. So I guess it all worked out in the end and nobody made a fuss about him knocking up a 14-year-old. Not a lawyer yet. I'm in my last semester of law school and about to take my last ever law school final today. As a law student, you have the option of doing a lot of low-level pro bono work. I was at a family court as part of a project to help abused women get restraining orders against their abusers. To look loyally, all of us law students dressed up in suits. Family court tends to be filled with pro se fears, people representing themselves. So, anyone dressed in a suit starts attracting all of the people who don't want to deal with the issues themselves. Since hey, they look like a lawyer, this one gentleman came up to me and my partner, another law student, asking us if we could help him file a restraining order against his girlfriend because she wrote on her Facebook wall that he had a small penis, which he assured us wasn't true. He also wanted to get a restraining order against a different ex-girlfriend because she took some of his clothes and things when they broke up and he wanted them back. He also wanted to get a restraining order against his brother for beating him up when he was a kid. He was in his 30s. Edit: thanks everyone for the encouragement. The admin final went well. One more tomorrow. And to anyone else in finals, you've got it. To the people saying he could get an order for libel, Probably not. Libel requires showing of harm and that would be a pretty tricky thing to prove, especially in the state we are in. Furthermore, getting a temporary restraining order through a family court is a little goofy. Also, the conversion claim. Yes, that's technically true, but what the guy described was maybe $50 max of clothing. A restraining order would not solve that problem, and sadly it would be hard to capture the rambling bizarre speech patterns of this gentleman. Edit 2. For the record, the program was called CAP, Courtroom Advocates Project. Whoa, you made it to the end? You're a ducking beast. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content, bruh. It's free and that's a great price.